Competition is a system that produces excellence. When I was an engineer in a manufacturing facility, we would invite different tooling suppliers in to run trials, and we'd evaluate whose tool had the best performance. The tooling suppliers had to find new ways to continually improve in order to compete, because whoever won got the business. And although it was more work, we won because we ended up with a tool that had the best cycle time, tool life, and quality all at the best cost. There was a mantra: competition breeds excellence. And this came from our plant manager, who was an ex-officer on submarines in the Navy. We used to call him affectionately Major Tom. And he would not let us forget this: competition breeds excellence. And I think that's true when you have a full lineup. Foot racing became popular in the 17th century in the UK. Footmen would race, and their masters would wager on the results. And the 1 mile run started being recorded in the 1860s when the first precisely measured racing tracks were built. And then in the 1930s, the racing really took off. It became popular for two reasons. One was newsreel footage, and second, there was increased global competition, so the times got better. Where you just had the UK, now you had the United States, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, Finland, France, Algeria, and Tanzania, all competing, so the times just kept getting better. And then after the war, John Landy from Australia and Roger Bannister from the UK competed to break the 4-minute mile barrier. And Roger Bannister was the first to do this in 1954 on May 6th. And then just 46 days later, John Landy followed and broke his record. The record is now held by Morocco. This happened in 1999, and that record still sits at a time of 3 minutes and 43 seconds. And statisticians say the only way that will be broken is either by advancements in running technology or more global competition. So the problem we have today is in our largest corporations, we have more Hispanics, Asians, women, African Americans in the workforce, but the leaders don't look like the workforce, and they don't look like the consumer population. That's a pie chart that shows the landscape of the CEOs in the S&P 500. So corporate North America is not playing with a full deck. At best, it's playing with a half a deck. So competition breeds excellence when we can open up the field of play and give everybody the chance to compete. Aaron Durr, who's an associate professor at York University, studied boards in Norway, pre and post quota. And he wrote about performance, decision-making, and diverse perspectives in his book, Challenging Boardroom Homogeneity. And what he found was, number one, the women showed up to the board meetings having read the material. This caused the men to start showing up better prepared. So the performance of the non-dominant group improved the performance of the dominant group. Second, women took longer to make decisions. They wanted to make sure they fully understood all of the information and that they had all of the information. This caused some dynamic conflict. Decisions took longer. There was more going back and forth to management. But in the end, the decisions were made in the boardroom instead of on the golf course, in the country club, or even in the nightclub. Women also were more likely to look at the long-term impact of decisions, where men were looking at the short-term impact. Men looked at shareholder value, where women looked at the stakeholder value. So they were not only looking at the investors, but they were looking at the environment, the community, and the employees. And reality is the best boards have both. So why does diversity breed excellence? One word: balance. If you've ever been on a BOSU ball, and BOSU stands for both sides up, balance can be really tricky. It's difficult to stay on top of that thing. It takes an enormous amount of balance, and it's tricky, and you fall off. But there's an immense amount of core strength that is developed. And that allows for more agility and more flexibility. And I offer the same holds true for corporations who have balance in positions of power and influence. It's more difficult, it takes more work in the beginning, but in the end, organizations are stronger from the inside out. We need to redefine the word competition. Competition, right? Who wants more competition? I don't, I want to win. But competition is necessary for a healthy ecosystem. So we have to get this negative connotation of competition out of our mind. This idea of conflict and battle and anti-collaboration needs to be put to the side. If you are the bronze medal winner in a 3-person race, what does that really say? So how can we open up the field of play to better prepare everybody to compete in our economy? There are 3 traits that I've seen in leaders that have been very effective in helping us do this: advocacy, generous leadership, and having high expectations for all. So number 1, advocacy. Use the power and influence you have to make the field more competitive. Provide practical support to people, such as making strategic introductions and creating opportunities for people who not only look like you, but don't look like you. Ensure there's a diverse set of voices at the table where the decisions are made. And create a diverse pool of candidates for interviewing. I had an advocate invite me in for my very first manager position to interview. And I was competing against 5 other people for the position, and that was intimidating, but it made me work harder. I was selected for the position, and I was able to bring an element of inclusive leadership to the team where it had been missing. Second, generous leadership. The best leaders strive to make everybody better. They've got their egos in check, they share their power and influence, and they're not concerned about surrounding themselves with people who may be smarter than them. These leaders take the time and spend the energy providing feedback that's meaningful, actionable, and honest. The best feedback I've ever received made me stronger not only in my professional life, but in my personal life. And I'm sure it wasn't always easy to give. And number 3, have high expectations for everybody. One interpretation of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is, as the observer changes, the observed changes. I've worked for leaders who underestimated my capability, and it decreased my confidence. And I had this feeling of, well, if that's all you think I can give, that's all I'm going to give. On the other hand, I've worked for leaders who had very high expectations, and it made me work harder because I didn't want to disappoint them. And I was able to find something in myself that I didn't know was there. So that increased my performance, which increased my confidence, and that's like a muscle that continues to grow stronger. So competition breeds excellence is not just something that applies to other people. It applies to all of us. If you're in the dominant group, look for ways that you can invite others in. And if you're from the non-dominant group, step up and jump in. I guarantee you have something to offer. When I was 45, I went back for my MBA at Michigan State University. And I almost didn't go because I thought, how am I possibly going to compete with these people that are coming out of their undergrad? Well, I'm glad I went. The way the program was set up, we worked in teams. And yes, I was the oldest person on my team, but I was not only able to survive, I was able to compete because I brought something to the team they didn't have, which was experience. There was so much diversity across all the teams. It increased the competition, but the entire class ended up stronger. And that experience taught me to go into environments that I normally wouldn't have gone into and after opportunities that I normally wouldn't have in the past. So competition is not a system of winner takes all. When we can open up the field to more diverse competition, everybody wins. Ourselves as individuals, our organizations, our companies, our industries, even our countries. We all win because we become more competitive. That's better for the economy, and who doesn't want that? Thank you.